Imagine being told you're responsible for removing a 100-ton steel bank vault from a basement, or else you'll be sued into oblivion. That's exactly what happened to a friend of mine when a greedy commercial landlord tried to bleed him dry. But what the landlord didn't realize is that I had a plan, one that would leave him trapped with the very vault he thought he could use to destroy us. If you've ever been pushed around by someone in power, whether it's a boss, a landlord, or anyone who thought they could bully you, hit that like button, subscribe, and get ready, because this story is about how one arrogant landlord got outsmarted in the most satisfying way possible.
Back in the 90s, I rented office space in an old downtown building. The place had character: high ceilings, creaky floors, and a restaurant in the basement called The Vault. Why the vault? Because sitting right there in the dining room was an enormous, gleaming bank vault. We're talking about steel doors thicker than my arm span and rows of brass safe deposit boxes that looked like something out of a heist movie. Customers could actually sit inside and eat, surrounded by all that heavy steel. It was unique, unforgettable, and, as it turned out, a ticking time bomb for the restaurant owner. Now, everyone in that building had one thing in common. We all hated the landlord. He was the kind of man who got a twisted joy out of making life miserable. Beefy, red-faced, always sweating through his shirt, and quick to threaten anyone who questioned him. He never argued calmly. He barked, he sneered, and his favorite weapon was fear. See, in commercial rentals, landlords don't need to drag you into court to evict you. If you were late on rent, too bad. They'd just change the locks overnight. And this guy loved reminding people of that. He used it like a hammer, dangling the threat over tenants constantly. So one day, I was having lunch at the vault when the owner pulled me aside. His face was pale, his hands trembling slightly as he unfolded a letter. "The landlord's driving me insane," he muttered. I skimmed the pages. It was a demand letter. Pages of so-called extra rent charges, snow removal from years ago, parking lot resurfacing, common area flooring, charges piled high, many of them ancient. And at the bottom, the landlord's classic line: pay up or the locks change.
"What the hell did you do to piss him off this badly?" I asked. The owner sighed. "He knows I'm moving the restaurant to a new location. I think he's trying to squeeze every last dollar before I go. But that's not the worst of it." He leaned in closer. "He says I'm responsible for removing the vault." At first, I thought he was joking, but no. Buried deep in the lease was a clause that required the tenant to return the space to its original condition. The vault dated back to the 1940s when the place was a bank. It weighed nearly 100 tons. Removing it would cost an astronomical amount. And here's where it got worse. The owner had personally guaranteed the lease. That meant if the restaurant didn't pay, the landlord could come after him personally. His savings, his house, his future. I looked at him. He was defeated, shoulders slumped, eyes glazed over with that hollow look people get when they realize they're about to be crushed by something much bigger than them. His commercial lawyer had already told him there was no way out. But I wasn't ready to give up. "Send me the lease," I said. "Let me take a closer look." When I got back to my office, the papers were waiting on my desk. Page after page of outdated renewals, assignments, and amendments. The mess of legalese stretched back 50 years. And there it was, the clause about the vault, hanging over us like a death sentence.
For a moment, even I felt that pit in my stomach, the cold dread of being cornered. But then a thought hit me, a spark of an idea that made my pulse quicken. I called the restaurant owner. "I can save you," I told him, "but it's gonna cost." He barely let me finish before asking, "How much?" $5,000 in legal fees and another $1,000 for an agent. Within the hour, a certified check was on my desk. That was how desperate he was. Now, here's where the plan began to take shape. I knew the landlord's greatest weakness: his greed.
He was a bully, yes, but what really drove him was the thrill of squeezing money out of every deal. He never thought long-term, he only thought, what can I grab right now? So I found a real estate agent, a guy who understood the game, and I set the trap. A few days later, I met the restaurant owner again, inside the vault room. The heavy steel door was almost shut, muffling the clatter of dishes outside. It felt like we were plotting a heist instead of eating lunch. "We're going to demand that the landlord lets you take everything out," I explained. "Not just the ovens and freezers, the vault too." The owner nearly choked on his wine. "The vault? I don't want the damn thing." "That's the point," I said. "We're going to demand it. Make it look like you're desperate to take it with you." He shook his head. "You think you can beat him with reverse psychology?" "Exactly. He's a toddler with too much power. Treat him like one and he'll trip over his own arrogance." The timing was perfect. The landlord was actually in the restaurant that day, wolfing down a rack of lamb at another table, grease dripping down his chin, chewing with his mouth open, the picture of smug gluttony. I walked over, calm, confident. My heart was pounding, but I didn't let it show. "I'm the vault's lawyer," I said evenly. "My client needs an answer about our demand. He intends to remove the vault and relocate it. We need confirmation immediately."
The landlord burst out laughing, spraying crumbs. "Your client can forget about the bank vault. I'm the landlord. I own the vault. He's not taking it anywhere." I feigned shock. "You're claiming ownership, even though the lease clearly makes him responsible?" He wiped his greasy hands on his napkin and smirked. "I can do what I want. Sue me if you don't like it." That was it. The trap had snapped shut. By the end of the day, we had his response in writing, a signed letter where he officially claimed ownership of the vault. A month later, the restaurant moved to a new location. Same name, same vibe, but this time free of the 100-ton anchor threatening to drag the owner into financial ruin. And the landlord? Oh, he thought he was about to land a shiny new tenant. A bank. Perfect fit, right? Except when the bank reps came to see the space, they balked. Why? Because the vault was still there. Removing it would cost a fortune, and thanks to his own arrogance, the landlord had legally tied it to himself. When he confronted me in the hallway, his jowls quivering with rage, I almost laughed. "I know you were behind this. That agent, that offer, it was all a trick. You made me keep the vault so your client could walk away." I just smiled. "If you're looking for legal counsel, I'll have to declare a conflict."
He swore he'd sue everyone in sight, me, the restaurant, the agent, but deep down, he knew the truth. He had nothing. No contract, no case, just his own arrogance turned against him. And when I finally moved out a year later, that space was still empty. The once proud landlord now had a 100-ton reminder of his greed sitting in the basement, mocking him every day with its locked steel doors.
The sweetest part wasn't just that the restaurant escaped. It was knowing the landlord had dug his own grave. He thought he could bully us, bleed us, force us into the impossible. Instead, he ended up stuck with the very vault he tried to use as a weapon, 100 tons of steel and 100 tons of humiliation. Sometimes the best revenge isn't loud or violent. Sometimes it's letting someone's own arrogance crush them. That landlord thought he was untouchable, but in the end, all it took was a little patience, a little planning, and his own greed to bring him down. If this story gave you chills, hit that like button and drop a comment. What's the most satisfying revenge you've ever seen? And if you want more tales of justice served cold, make sure you subscribe, because trust me, there are plenty more where this came from.